Hey guys, this is Denny from TDB, and on this InBetweenIsode, I'm going to show you guys a standard session for me trying to master just a simple raw Pu'Erh. I've been drinking this every day for about 10 days now, and I wanted to show you guys how I like to drink this tea and bring you guys through the journey of learning how to do so. So stay tuned for InBetweenIsode number 31. So what's up everybody, this is Denny from TDE, and I'm going to be talking over some footage here of me drinking a whole bunch of raw Pu'Erh. I'm really only drinking probably like a sip or two per steeping, but I wanted to walk through how I've learned and taught myself through drinking this one tea rather, every day for the last couple weeks, 10 days or so. How I've learned to brew this up to make it taste what I think is delicious throughout. So, I'm just going to show you guys some of the pieces here. That last piece there was kind of what I would call a big piece, and I'm learning that in order to create a really uniform cup, I like to break up the tea a fair amount. So maybe I'll use 4 or 5 small pieces and then one big piece like that. And for a small gaiwan that I'm using, 60 milliliters, I'm using probably about 3 or 4 grams of tea. I'm not using that much. Probably more like 4. And I actually don't measure, so I have no idea, but not very much. But you'll see that even though there's not very much dry leaf in here, it really does fill up the cup. So you'll see that through the steepings. But, I'm using a lot of processed tea. So tea sort of kind of going back to the individual leaves from being pressed. So it's not a bunch of big chunks. It's a lot of highly processed, two leaves per sort of chunk brewing. And I do 2 pretty long steepings. This will vary depending on how much kind of basically sediment and oils and gunk kind of come from the top of it. Try to get a zoom in close up here, not looking super hot. I think I do eventually figure out how to do that. Doesn't really show up on camera like that, but I zoom out and it works better later. So first rinse, just go ahead and boom, get that done with. And I'm going to show you guys throughout the color here. So looking pretty orange yellow. And then I go ahead and just clean the filter a little bit there, and then heat the cup up a little bit. And then I'm going to do another steeping here, another rinse here. And you'll notice that, it gets kind of bubbly and gunky a little bit there, it just kind of bubbles. And for me, that usually means just give it another rinse. It's not necessarily anything bad with the tea. It just oftentimes will taste better and be a little bit more clean when you drink it by rinsing a couple times. It'll have a lot more flavor. So this is the first steeping I'm going to drink, flash steeping. So you'll notice that actually this steeping is not as dark as the rinse on the white paper. It's much lighter. It's got much more of a yellow color. And this steeping is really light. It's a very much of an introduction to the flavors that I will be drinking. So texturally, it's light in the mouth. It's hints at flavors of sweetness and the general feel of the tea, but it doesn't give away a whole lot of intensity at all. So I'm not even going to get drinking there. I'm just going to do another flash brew immediately here. And this one will end up being just slightly darker. And the point of this is that essentially what I'm going to do is drink these steepings progressively, and the heat and the saturation of the leaves in terms of getting fully soaked in the hot water and the boiling water eventually will lead to slightly more intense steepings up to about the 5th steeping or so. And then I start to extend the steeping. So this is the 3rd steeping. So this is the 5th infusion of this tea already. And again, I'm doing it super flash brew style, and you'll see the gaiwan here in a second, how much the leaves have expanded. hopefully will show the color here of this brew, but it'll get progressively just a little bit darker and darker. And oh my goodness, I haven't even mentioned this tea yet. So this tea was given to us by Scott. This is a 357 gram brick of his 2006 Yunnan Sourcing raw production. And I tried to look this up and actually couldn't find it on his website. But it's using 2006 material, and then it's pressed in 2009. So I think it's his first year of doing any raw himself. And I think he did this with another person as well. And I've really been enjoying drinking this tea on a daily basis and really trying to master it. So you'll notice that the tea is definitely getting a little bit more orange in the vessel there, and it's getting a little bit darker. It's getting a little bit more viscous, and it's not at all increasing in bitterness. And I really like this. So I'm not super into the mouth puckering, stomach punching, amphetamine-esque effects of raw Pu'Erh. I like it to be sweet, mellow, crisp, unique. There's really no teas flavors like it, and I really enjoy that. So, I personally am at least getting more accustomed to those experiences, and in the meanwhile, I'm really enjoying this fresh take. And so for folks out there, I'm going to probably title this something like, A Newbie's Guide to Drinking Some Raw Pu'Erh, but I would recommend you guys follow this sort of protocol, and I'm trying to show it to you guys live here, basically. But again, I'm brewing fairly quick steepings, and this is probably the 7th steeping, and at this point, it's still only... Let's see if I get it in there. That's probably 15 seconds at this point, and showing the actual liqueur. And also, I think the liqueur part of this is fairly important, is that you really want to maintain close shades, or hues, between steepings, meaning that the saturation of color, the change of color shouldn't be that intense over the steepings to maintain that soft, pleasurable, and lighter raw Pu'Erh experience. And I think that these teas get to that place given enough age in a humid enough environment. But for some of these teas, even though this is still, this is an older raw Pu'Erh, I definitely have overbrewed this tea in my experience going through this process. So of the times that I've tried this, probably 10 or so times, this is my favorite way of doing it so far with this tea in particular. And if it was a bunch of years older, I'm sure that I could just hammer it with the hottest water for the longest steep times, and it would be pretty mellow. But even a tea that's 9 or so, I guess, let's see here, 9 years old, even this tea, if you don't brew it right, from my experience, it'll kick your ass. So I really enjoy brewing it this way. It's still maintaining that lightness. Maybe it's getting a little bit less light, and a little bit more yellow again, losing a little bit of that orange. And what I'll do now is, if I haven't yet done it in the footage, I'll actually boil up some fresh water and add another blast of heat. And so from the start of this footage has been approximately 8 minutes or so. And so that means that I've waited about 8 minutes to go through, 9 steepings. Realistically, you're going to want to reheat the water probably about the 5th steeping or so, and then bring the time of that steeping back a little bit because of you're adding the heat so much. So hopefully you guys are kind of understanding the sort of scales of doing this. If you're going to increase the heat, you lower the time a little bit. If you lower the time, you need to increase the heat, or have it be early on in the steepings. So these sort of 3 different parts kind of interplay. And let's look at the steeping here. So this is probably the 10th or so steeping, and it's still nice and full of body, sweet, flavorful. I'm still tasting this session, and it's been 20 minutes or so. It still has that red So it'll slowly start to die out here. And I'm not done drinking this session. I'm going to continue through the session. And, at the last 2 or 3 steepings, you just basically are throwing boiling water in there for 2 or 3 minutes, like a traditional cup of tea. And it's still flavorful. It still has those hints of the flavor, especially if you walk away from it and then come back to it. So totally pleasurable experience here. And again, this is just me walking through and taking my own advice of, spending every single day with one tea and learning how to brew that one tea well. So I encourage you guys, even if it's not raw Pu'Erh, but if it's some other type of tea, to really drink it every day, get enough of it, go through it, and learn how you like to brew that kind of tea. And from there, you can experiment with the different teas within that category and how they perform based on your standard of brewing. So I'm learning how to establish my own standard of brewing here with raw Pu'Erh by really humbling myself as much as possible, humble brag, and just trying to re-experience, really, stay new with it. And this is, what is this, the 12th, 13th infusion? Look at how dark it is still. Delicious, and it still tastes so good. So I'm really enjoying this experience of learning and tasting raw. I hope you guys get out there and try some delicious raw. This is a beautiful cake. I'm really enjoying it a lot. And I'm gonna continue to drink it every day until it's probably gone. We'll see. But this is Denny from TDB. Check us out on tdb.org. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you want to see more from us. We have videos with James and I as well. Again, tdb.org. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this session of raw and a little bit less tasting notes and more about how to brew. So until next time, guys. Cheers.